and welcome to episode 74 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Off-Topic Podcast. My name is Mike Sollosi, and I'm your host this evening, and with me is an excellent panel of Retro Encounter veterans, starting with Alana Hagues.
Hello, everyone.
Next is Peter Triezenberg.
Hi there.
And last is Stephanie Sybydlo.
Hi!
Okay, now today we're going to do a bit of an experiment here on Retro Encounter. We are going to try and determine Retro Encounter's officially, whoops, I need to mix up my adjectives and adverbs. Our Retro Encounter's official favorite Final Fantasy game.
This always works out so well.
Oh yeah, we're really good at arguing favorites on this podcast. Really good. We do not represent RPG Fan as a whole, just the four of us and this podcast picking a favorite Final Fantasy. So, we did some discussion, and
we're all friends right now. Hopefully that doesn't change by the end of it.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm. I don't think this is going to be as intense or as divisive as a certain other podcast that we recorded last year, but I do want to just, have this be just a discussion of Final Fantasy games in general and figuring out what our favorites are and what we love and don't love about a couple of them, and just arrive at this is our favorite one by the end of the episode. I don't know how successful this will be because we've only done a little bit of planning ahead of time, but it should be fun. So let's just stay happy, stay fun, maybe stay friends at the end. Does that sound okay to you guys?
I mean, you know what they say about the best laid plans, Mike.
They gang off to Glay, as it were. Here's your moment of Robert Burns poetry on the podcast. So,
there you go.
We did some discussion ahead of time, and we did an internal vote, and it looks like that there's 4 Final Fantasy games that we want to that we like the most. So there's a final 4 that we're gonna have most of our discussion be about. But before we get to those 4, let's jump around a little bit and talk about the Final Fantasy games we didn't vote for, but try to keep it quick because we don't want this to turn into like a 200-minute monstrosity. So it looks like that none of the NES Final Fantasy games got votes. So any ideas, theories about that? Why none of us care enough about FF1, 2, or 3?
I hate to diss the retro aspect, but it doesn't help it.
FF1 really has not aged all that well.
No. They're like good staples, but they're like the very bottom brick layer. So everything afterwards is a massive improvement, really, in terms of tech and everything, I guess.
They add more story, better music, better graphics, better everything. It just kind of goes uphill from there, even if it is a good foundation.
They aren't bad as NES RPGs go, but I agree, they haven't aged super great, especially when you... I mean, the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games are not that much older, and I think have aged much more gracefully.
I'd agree.
And Final Fantasy 2 just isn't good, period. So.
Yeah, they hadn't really figured out that Saga leveling style yet. So
there's a few good tracks in it. And did you guys ever play the PSP remakes?
I played the GBA remake of 2. Not the PSP one.
The remakes weren't bad, at least. I mean, as far as that goes, I like that they added the multi-hit combo system, and the sprite work is some of the best ever.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Yeah, they look gorgeous.
The PSP 1, 2, and 4 are the best FF sprite work.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so it's so sad that there's the Final Fantasy 5 and 6 that really took a backseat on their PC releases. When that came out earlier.
Those mobile ports, aren't they? They put the mobile ports onto Steam and they just look dreadful. They don't do them any justice at all.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess they switched teams who was working on it because the sprite work is completely botched.
Yeah, they look like, I don't know, like smoothed over or washed out or something. It does not look good. But anyway, we can't talk about older ones that much. Let's skip ahead and do the exact opposite. None of us voted for FF15 on this poll here. So, what do you think the reasoning is? the reasoning is there. Is it too new, or are we not sure if it's good yet because we're not sure what the final story looks like?
I would say it's too new, and actually, as my feelings settle, I find myself not liking it as much. So I was too
Okay.
scared to vote for it. So I would say that it's too new, and not enough people have played it either. It's not really cemented itself as kind of the best, and it's not really a full game yet. So, you know.
Sure. Sounds about
Yeah,
right. I haven't played FF15 yet, so
basically what Alana said.
Okay.
I think 15 is really good. I really enjoyed my time playing it. It would probably make a personal top 5 list in the series for me right at this moment. But like I said, it hasn't really had time to cement a legacy, and they're still working on it in a sense. Like they're just releasing new updates and patching things, and so we'll see.
I would totally play like another game like FF15, and if they keep improving upon this one, I will totally rank it way, way, way higher. As it stands now, though, it kind of misses the mark.
All right, sure, sounds about right.
Ignis is best boy.
Ignis is best boy.
I like them all. No, just kind of like the shots that it takes at the storyline later on. I like the increased pace, but I don't like the lack of detail in the story, which is just kind of grating to kind of, watch as it unfolds or doesn't unfold. It just kind of happens.
I agree. I think the final section is really good. I think
I love that whole road trip aspect. I think that part was brilliantly done, and I feel it feels pretty real.
But then they abandoned the road trip aspect at a certain point, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Because
I
followed some non-spoiler discussion of it, but again, I don't know everything about this game's pace.
After a certain point in the game, you're going to get on a train, and then the story is just going to become like the quick hits of, and then this happened,
basically,
and then this happened,
like takes you on a trail.
Oh,
yeah, it does. It's weird because it took me less than a month to find something that I enjoyed more than 15, and that was kind of I thought I really liked 15.
Okay, so So this is not a Final Fantasy Final Four finalist for us today, right?
Nope.
Okay. Sounds like it. Now, staying in the relatively near present, FF13 is not one of the games we're discussing. None of the ones in the 13 trilogy, even. But Peter, you've mentioned on the forums and to me personally before, you are a fan of the 13 games.
I'm a defender.
Right. Okay.
I respect them.
Okay, so defend them a little bit while also maybe thinking about why it's not one of our 4.
I have enjoyed each entry in the 13 series on its own merits, and I think each game had its fair share of good ideas and even some moments that were executed really well. However, kind of in the same vein as 15, almost 13 isn't really a complete game. It was clear that there were points of it that where they had no idea what they were doing for part of the development, and the final result is just this kind of like stitched together patchwork of concept art and unfinished level design ideas and a pretty solid combat system, but you're kind of dealing with just the leftovers of whatever it is they originally conceived. And
it is totally a audio and visual experience. I mean, it's gorgeous. It sounds amazing.
Like the soundtrack is amazing.
Yeah,
all of them are.
Yeah, it's one of the best looking and sounding games in the series for sure.
Even now, like even with the PS4 out, I'd still say it's really, really beautiful. One thing I hate though is I can't even believe like the first Final Fantasy 13 game, it took away everything. There was no towns. There's barely anybody to talk to. There's barely any side quests. The game is like a corridor for like 80% of it. That's just so weird.
I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show before, but I remember reading somewhere that like they didn't have a final like gameplay system figured out until they had to make a demo for Advent Children Complete, which was 6 months before the game's Japanese release.
Oh wow, really?
It was
complete. Yeah.
The battle system's definitely simple enough to get away with it.
Yeah, but it takes away. I agree. The battle system's good, but then there's such an easy way to break it by doing auto or whatever it was. Like,
but 13.2 is a better version of the same combat system. Anyway.
Yeah. from what I played, I like the battle system in 13.2, but I hated 13.2.
But the gameplay and story approach were very different between the 3 games in the 13 trilogy, which I thought was pretty interesting. I mean, because
Right.
I didn't do that. I didn't play 13 too much, but wasn't like monster recruiting a major part of that game?
Oh.
Yeah.
To me, it just shows they didn't really have a clear vision about what they wanted to do with the series and kept jumping ship.
I thought Lightning Returns was actually a good bit of fun, even though the story is absolute and utter nonsense.
Very much, yeah. I remember watching a few cutscenes. I was like,
Lightning Returns, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, none of those 3 are going to be, discussed in depth today. They're not in our final 4. So, let's go back in time a little further. Final Fantasy VIII is not going to be discussed in our upcoming 4.
Aww.
And
sucks.
I don't.
Ouch.
I think we mentioned this in another podcast recently. I don't love FF8. I think it's the weakest of the 90s Final Fantasy games. But and part of it is because I don't like the Squall-Renoa relationship. I don't like how breakable and tedious the combat systems and customization systems feel. I
don't appreciate it taking 30 seconds to start a fight.
Right, and
yeah.
And so much of it is summoning GFs, and GF summons take a full minute all the time. And limit breaks can be exploited because they occur at random when your characters are at critical health. There's a lot of gameplay things and story things about FF8 just never really jived with me. And I think the first disc is actually pretty fun because it's introducing you to the world of the gardens and you can sort of the whole sorceress mission is cool, but after that, the story just falls apart. I don't like FF8,
You start dealing with weird time and space stuff, and I'm just kind of going cross-eyed.
Yeah, it tries too hard.
Yeah, it tries hard by the end. That's for sure.
Compression.
I'm a little glad that none of the 3 of you loved it enough to defend it and put it in the final 4. But it's
kind of like Final Fantasy 13. Yeah, I think the world they create is absolutely gorgeous. It's a very nice kind of modern-looking world, but oh man, it kind of misses the mark somewhere in the storytelling.
Yeah,
it's got a really cool version of Gilgamesh too.
And it's a very beautiful game, especially for its time, and it's definitely ambitious in the world that it creates and a lot of the ideas it has. I just don't think it really succeeded at much of it. Not in our top 4. Mm-mm. And speaking of 4s, Final Fantasy IV didn't make it either. Which is a little too bad. I have a lot of positive nostalgia for FF4. I
feel that's where the better nostalgia comes from, not for the NES games, but for this first SNES game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us do.
Final Fantasy IV was my first RPG, and
mine too.
And it may be the FF game I've replayed the most because it comes out on every damn system, and every time it comes out, I have to go and replay it. So I've played that thing probably 6 or 7 times, but I like FF4 a lot. It has its world is colorful and fun. I like the cast a lot. I mean, basically everyone is one of the FF1 or 3 classes, but it all sort of works.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It throws even a few twists at you in the dwarf world. The dwarf people are the make it totally worth it.
Rally ho!
They do.
Rally ho!
Rally ho!
I think 4 has one of the best just kind of premises in the series, and it's kind of where I think it's almost where the series really starts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It kind of set the precedent going forward. I love Dark Knight Cecil and his little development arc. I think that's really neat.
The music too.
Yeah.
The music in that game, every track,
brilliant.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good soundtrack.
Yeah.
I used to have my brother playing it on his little electronic keyboard at night. He'd be playing the world map theme and all that stuff, and that's when he started getting into music.
Oh.
Man, even the Red Wings mission song at the very beginning of the game
That's very evocative.
Yeah.
I started playing Troy and Beauty on the accordion back when I played it.
Nice.
Oh,
that's a story for another day.
I can play a couple Final Fantasy songs on the piano, but we'll talk about that game a little later. So Final Fantasy IV is not in our final 4, even though we love it dearly. Jumping ahead a little bit, Final Fantasy 12 is also not one of our final four, but it did get a vote in our little survey at the beginning. That was you, Peter?
I think so. I don't remember exactly, but I would have. I really like 12.
Okay, so let's talk
I'm
about.
really waiting for the Zodiac job system
Right.
to really give it a second to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we all are.
Yeah, and same deal. I've only played it. I only played it the one time, and it was a few years after release, and I am really excited to give it another chance with the Zodiac Age. But I love Ivalice as a setting. And that's I'm and
if they
12
return to that for Final Fantasy 16, I would squeal.
I would flip out
For about 10 minutes.
There's some evil stuff in 14 coming up.
Yeah, it's even called Return to Ivalice, and I think
when I saw that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna come. It's gonna come after Stormblood, so I think it's either gonna be.
And they got Mitsuno back for that, didn't they?
Yeah, he's gonna be doing story planning for it.
He is.
It's amazing, like because I love Mitsuno. He's so talented. He puts in so much, like, aside from just having a really strong grasp of narrative, he's so good at subtext. Like even 12, which 12 arguably has one of the messier stories in the series.
Sure.
There's just some great stuff in there. Like I love Bosch. I love his whole story arc of like trying to redeem himself in the eyes of his people and protect his queen. I love Balthier because he's the leading man and he's awesome.
He's a sky pirate. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and like the Espers in the game, like the Espers are like fundamentally useless from a gameplay standpoint, but they have such cool backstories, and I'm just
the summon animations too were really, really cool, and I like that it introduces a whole lot of new ones into the mix finally.
Mm-hmm.
The Esper boss fights and encounters are really, really cool, even though the rewards aren't quite as cool.
Yeah, honestly, 12 in a lot of ways is a prototype of what 14 would do and what 15 would do as well. And while they both kind of took different aspects from it, 15 is a lot more open worldy sandbox than 12 is. 12 would kind of, I think, sets a standard for the kind of like pseudo open world JRPG that we've seen emerge with games like Xenoblade, and I really like it, but it didn't make our final cut.
That's right. And also, let's stay on this Matsuno train a little bit. Final Fantasy Tactics did not make the cut either, but it was one of the games I voted for. I adore Final Fantasy Tactics. It's, it follows the Tactics Ogre tradition with that sort of oblique view over a checkerboard strategy RPG map, but I adore its class system, really like its story, and I have put so many hours into that thing. It's definitely one of my favorite Final Fantasy games. So, and it was I think the third game that we recorded Retro Encounter episodes for, back a year and a half ago when we were doing 3 episodes per game.
Okay, the reason I wouldn't put it on a list is because of the Executioner's Grounds and the Watergate, so there's my reason. The grind in that is not much fun either, and black mages make me want to scream.
Yeah, Magic is a little weak in that game because partially because of, I don't know, casting times, and because like the whole faith mechanic makes using magic a little iffy. I like driving everyone's faith down to about in the 10 to 20 range so that they're basically immune from magic. But it's a very exploitable, weird fight combat system with a lot of subsystems within it. Like it's one of the more mathier Final Fantasy games, for better or for worse. There's literally a class where you use math to destroy everything.
I really want more games to bring in bars and taverns to get more quests. I really like when games do that.
Yes.
Because where else are you going to find information?
And I should mention, I think Delita is one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters ever. He's a really interesting, complex sort of villain.
Totally.
Oh, don't spoil anything because I've never played Tactics. I'm not a tactics strategy RPG person, so I've always wanted to try Tactics though. Definitely it's on my list.
Man, I was not on the Tactics episode because I was worried I would just take over the episode and talk nonstop. So I could have some words for you about the story and Delita in general, but it's excellent. I recommend it.
The Tactics episode was my first time playing the game, and so if you want to hear like someone struggling with a learning curve, Alana.
That combat,
no.
the combat in FF Tactics does have a learning curve. Definitely.
Once you get past that, though, I think it's a really, really enjoyable. But it just takes a bit of getting used to. There is.
Did you play the original, or did you play the?
I played War of the Lions.
Remake? Okay. Would you recommend War of the Lions over the original, or?
I mean, I haven't played the original, so I can't really say. But I think as far as like, I mean, you're getting a better translation. You're getting animated cutscenes.
The cutscenes are good, and the translation is excellent, and the extras are not necessary but fun. The only thing that I have a problem with on that edition is the slowdown on casting, which is not present in the original.
Yeah.
Okay. I might just do the original, but it's definitely on my list, but probably not for a while. Maybe, yeah.
Right.
You can get them both and play them on Vita. So.
Okay, but that's not one of the ones we're talking about this time. But we're narrowing them down. There's only a couple left before we get to 4. So we're gonna skip ahead a little bit again. Neither 11 nor 14 is on our list here, but I voted for 14, and I think you did too, Alana, right?
I did, yeah.
I haven't been playing FF14 for terribly long, less than a year. But
yeah, same.
but it is. But I am
MMO standards.
but I am so consistently impressed with both the gameplay and the story and the Final Fantasy-ness of it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
There's so much to do, and so much of it is really, really fun. I'm a little blown away by FF14, and maybe it's recency bias, but I think very, very highly of it. And I'm kind of mad that I haven't been able to play it recently because of all the retro encounter games I'm playing. But
it's taken a bit of a backseat for me.
FF14's great.
It's fantastic. I've been playing it at weekends. I finally finished Heaven's Ward last night, so I'm now into pretty recent content, which is really good. But like you said, the callbacks, there are literally every quest and every little thing there is a callback to Final Fantasy. I mean, there's slight spoilers for Heaven's Ward, but Matoya's cave is there. Matoya's cave. Yep, there is a character called Matoya, and there is a cave, and she has lots of frogs and everything, and it's great. And it's just, it's really tight. So I've never played 11, so I can't really comment on 11. 14 is my first MMO anyway. But after the disaster that was 14 1.0, A Realm Reborn did something really cool in that. I love the cutscene at the end of 1.0. They decided to completely destroy the entire game and the world.
And also they...
What a perfect metaphor.
And they acknowledge 1.0 as like the world before the calamity, and stuff that happens in 1.0 is major story content in 2.0.
It's really on the nose in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
self-aware
self-aware in a way that's super interesting, and it's definitely an MMO, but it's also definitely Final Fantasy. It's so remarkable, and also Godbert Manderville is the greatest Final Fantasy character of all time.
Godbert Manderville is the greatest Final Fantasy character of all time.
Oh my god!
Name is the greatest name of all time.
That dude.
Yeah. He is fantastic. Also, there's fights with Ultros and Typhon as well. Oh, so good.
And Gilgamesh and
Gilgamesh
there's even a side quest that is basically dealing with a Tactics Ogre boss.
There is.
Yeah, all of the Palace of the Dead stuff is Tactics Ogre references.
It is.
Everything about it is crazy. And next year we're getting Return to Evil East Final Fantasy Tactics stuff. Doma is going to be like a samurai city that you explore in next
which is
one.
So nice.
Man,
I'm so excited for the patch because I'm a ninja, so it's like, okay, I'm going home now.
And shoot, I main monk, and you also go to the monk city in the next patch, so I'm excited about that. But anyway, Final Fantasy XIV is great. We might do a full episode on it later this year because there's so many RPG fan people that play it. But neither.
You have to trim down that list first.
Right, I think like 10 people volunteered. We may make it 2 episodes, but. We're not doing any of the MMO Final Fantasy games today.
Did anyone play 11 here? I'm just curious. I haven't.
I didn't.
No.
I played for like a month. I've forgotten everything about it, though.
Let's see. Okay, I was just curious. It's one of those games that I feel like was kind of important during its time. And I know it has a pretty devoted fan base, but it's not really one I've ever kept up with.
I think at this point, 14 kind of exceeds most of what it did.
And 14 is quite popular. its online community is thriving, and I don't know exactly like how the numbers shake out, but Square Enix is putting a lot of effort into it, and it doesn't look like they're slowing down either. So I think it's healthy. But anyway, we've talked a lot about FF14. We only have one more game to talk about before we get to our actual four, and this has been going on a while, and I apologize. And that is Final Fantasy V. I I like five a lot. I even did a there's even an annual FF5 speed run that event every summer that I've done twice. But it's not in our Final Four. But it may be my favorite version of the Final Fantasy job system, and that's part of why I really still enjoy five to this day, because its job system is so
it's
much
quick
fun.
And concise and hits all the right notes, doesn't it?
Yep, absolutely. And
it's not very complicated at all. You don't have to do really many stupid quests like you do in 10.2 to get some of the jobs.
Yeah, you get a bunch really early, and then they give you a nice steady trickle of jobs until you have at least in the 20 or 25 range by the halfway point of the story.
It's also one of those kick-ass games that really counts on the effect of equipment much more than like raw strength of the equipment. I always think that's really cool. So like the chicken knife is like seriously one of the coolest items ever.
And I love how in minor spoilers for FF5, the game is in 3 distinct acts, and the third act sort of combines geographical and visual and story elements of the first 2 acts in a way that is really, really cool. And the sort of non-linear parts of the end of Final Fantasy V is really fun and satisfying, seeing how everything fits together. And like
I love that it's kind of a looser story structure too. It's a lot more basic, so they could just focus more on the dungeons, on the side quests, on the extensive combat.
Yeah.
It does, yeah. So, it doesn't quite go for the theatrics that like 6 and all the other games have after it, but I think it's just a very good gameplay experience.
And also, I should mention, I think Exdeath is a really good villain. I love how they have like the
Except the name.
Yeah, or
Or the tree.
Well, Exodus I think is what he's officially now, but the first translation of it was Exdeath, and
they've kept Exdeath in every version.
Yeah.
Really? But I thought they changed it to Exodus. Really?
Oh,
I don't think they ever did.
Okay,
I think the city is definitely Exdeath.
They changed it from capital X death to EX death.
Okay.
Okay.
Why am I confusing myself with Exodus stuff? Maybe I probably just saw it written there once.
Because you're in denial and you want him to be a good villain.
Well, I think he's an impactful villain, and like seeing him.
Not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think he is. Like,
yeah.
He when he kills a party member before Sephiroth made it cool.
And he just murks entire towns in the last part of the game. That's a little bit jarring when it happens. And it also means there's no way to get Shiva or Ramuh if you haven't already. But
at the end of the day, he's a pastel blue suit of armor that was also a giant tree.
Still better villain than the sorceress.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's a really low bar.
There is nothing wrong with pastel blue armor.
Pastel blue armor that used to be a tree prison for evil souls. But
it's like I'm revealing my future glamming plans for 14 pastel blue armor. There you go.
That would be quite beautiful, wouldn't it?
There's a lot of pretty armor in FF14. I bet there's a bunch of ways to make that look good. But anyway, we're not talking about FF5 today. Now, here's the moment of truth, though. The 4 games that we decided are our finalists to determine Retro Encounter's favorite Final Fantasy game. And those are Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, and Final Fantasy X. That 95 to 2001 range. That is maybe Square's a bit of a golden age for Square, you might say.
I think unanimously a lot of fans would agree with that too. Like, details aside, I think those are still the biggest heavy hitters of the series across the board. Not even with us.
Sure.
I think that's fair enough.
Boom.
Whatever.
Even if those 4 might not be people's favorites, because favorite is such a subjective word, those are definitely 4 of the most impactful, biggest Final Fantasy games in general. And I think that people that have played RPGs from around that time would agree that it was a very good time to be an RPG fan in the mid-late 90s and early 2000s. So, all right. where do we go from here? We have these 4 Final Fantasy games. I think do we each want to just do you want to go in chronological order, talking about what we like the most about those 4 before we start, arguing?
Might as well.
Just stay positive a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any good way to get through it. Let's do it.
Okay, well, I guess I'll go first because FF6 is my favorite Final Fantasy game, and it was one of the first RPGs I played. I'm not sure exactly how the numbers shake out, but it was probably one of the first 5 RPGs I ever played because I started playing RPGs in the Super Nintendo era, and I think so much of FF6 works for me. The cast is diverse and fun, and there's 14 of them, which is remarkable. The story is consistently interesting, and the stakes stay high while you see Kefka betraying Guest Hall, Kefka ending the world, you having to sort of reassemble your party bit by bit. How FF6 has 2 disparate halves, where the first half is sort of a more normal feeling RPG, and the second half is of this non-linear extravaganza. Man, and even its look, which is sort of bridges the gap between the more fantasy-influenced earlier Final Fantasy games and the more sci-fi-influenced later Final Fantasy games. It's a bit of a transition game in a way there. The combat is maybe the best version of that active time battle system, with each character having unique elements and commonalities within their moveset. I mean, Alana, you and I had a whole FF6 episode where we talked about this in detail several months ago.
Oh, we had a blast. And I also have an editorial somewhere on the site where I just kind of gushed about it because I'm a relative newcomer. I just finished it last year for the first time. Ooh. So I can agree on everything pretty much. It's probably my second favorite for definite. I think maybe the anticipation of what was coming up maybe killed a little bit of the fun for me, but there was still, I was still shocked when Kefka just did everything. Everything Kefka did, I was just sort of like, okay, I don't know, I'm kind of scared now. And there's a lot of emotional investment. So where Final Fantasy IV, where we're praising Cecil's character arc, I think in 6, it's a lot easier to get emotionally invested in at least 6 or 7 of the characters. Definitely Locke, Celeste, Terra, Setzer to a degree, Saban.
I love Cayenne's arc in that game.
Cayenne, yeah.
Edgar and Sabin just broke me.
Yes,
dude holds up a house.
And Realm, it just does it so well. Where so many RPGs have so many different characters, they don't utilize them. Final Fantasy VI pretty much does all of them, give or take. Amaro,
great character arcs, yeah.
And I should mention, I normally hate small children characters in RPGs. Even though I love Tales games and I love Falcom games, I almost always hate the little kid character in all of those. But Realm is the exception. Realm's great.
Realm is one of the exceptions. She's excellent. Great. Yeah.
One thing I like is that game manages to be actually atmospheric, even despite being an SNES game.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's adventure with the music. Oh,
I don't think there's anything cool. To me, the height of that game, I know it's early on, is Sabin's scenario, which is just the greatest, weirdest odyssey that you go on in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it introduces the Cayenne arc.
Yeah.
It introduces Cayenne and Gao back to back, who might be the most tragic and sort of also weirdest 2 characters back to back. And even Gao, he has a story resolution that's sort of amazing when you with him and his father.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I love FF6.
Heartbreaking. Oh, it's excellent. Definitely the highest. And
I hope it wins our little experiment that we're doing today, but it's way too early to tell if that's going to happen or not.
Well, I remember back when 13 was happening, and the director of that game, Motomo Toriyama, was saying something about Lightning being and Lightning got a lot of press at the time for being the first Final Fantasy female protagonist, and I'm just sitting here Terra and Celeste, guys. Yeah. And they're actually good characters.
Yeah, I think they're good. I think it's a 3-way split. So I think Terra, Locke, and Celeste, but definitely Terra's internal struggle is perhaps outwardly projected. And I would say Celeste's struggle is perhaps more central to happenings. So
I like the bit of it's a bit of a joke, right? Where Terra's name is Tina and Celestina is a name. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah.
So I kind of like the idea that both of them kind of take the helm in two very distinct ways.
Locke is like a Balthier character, actually. I always think of Locke as like
he is kind of
the equivalent,
Balthier, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he
Something
does
about handsome thieves.
And he
And he has
yeah, something about handsome rogues that goes all the way back to, Star Wars and earlier. But and Locke does drive the story for a good part of the game, and I think I mentioned this in the old FF6 podcast, but the character that's with you for the most of the game might be Sabin, because he joins very early in the World of Ruin, and he's an optional part of your party for most of the World of Balance. So it's an argument who the main character of FF6 is. But
yeah.
If there's one thing I would like to say is that 6's characters in subsequent media have kind of gotten the shaft.
Kefka.
I hate Clown Kefka, and I hate how Terra has been portrayed in everything else.
Oh
yeah, they're very extreme.
Terra's isn't too bad, but she's just kind of too meek.
Yeah,
I actually don't like Terra that much.
Just like,
Yeah, Dissidia Terra is a little bit of a meek is a good word. A little bit.
She's a bit of a downer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think you see that one sprite of her looking down, like, almost once every single cutscene she's in, and it just kind of brings me down. She's a good character, and I like the start of, I think she's a pretty okay lead. She's not my favorite female lead character and all that kind of stuff.
I like Terra a lot, but I think I actually like Celeste more.
Me too.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we've spent a lot of time in FF6. We're gonna keep. We'll revisit FF6 later, but let's move on to 7 now. FF7, I think it's still the best-selling game in the series. It was a huge watershed game. You really hadn't seen 3D effects work in an RPG anytime prior to FF7, and it was a system mover for the PlayStation 1. And honestly, the reason that I got into the PlayStation instead of the N64 when I was thinking about getting a new system back in the day was because one of the systems had Final Fantasy, Mega Man, and Street Fighter, and the other didn't.
Solid reasoning.
Right. So I really like FF7. I think parts of it don't hold up as well today. I mean, especially the polygon visuals. But I think as a story and as characters, it does hold up. I truly believe that, even though there's been a weird revisionist history where there's a little bit. I think there's more. I think FF7 gets a little bit more negative attention now than it did even 15 years ago.
I'm mostly amazed by the I'm mostly amazed by the journey the game kind of takes you on. I mean, you start in Midgar for like a good 10 to 8 to 12 hours, I guess. Then it takes you out into the world finally, where you do proceed to do a world tour of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start going around on an airship. Like, it really takes you on a really big journey.
Yeah.
When I first played it, it was the first time I think that I had ever played a game that was more than one disc, and Midgar was so huge and so cool. I thought leaving Midgar was going to be the end of the first disc.
Oh,
that first disc crams a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the proportions between the discs are ridiculous. So I think disc 1 is Aerith's death, isn't it? And then disc 2 is literally up to Hojo. Then disc 3 is literally the final dungeon. So it's like yeah, so the proportion is really good. I remember leaving Midgar for the first time and hearing the world map theme for the first time, and I think it's got to be one of my favorite video game moments ever, and it makes me brings me to tears every time. And that piece of music is just a piece of art. I love going out and just thinking, compared to how, because you see Midgar's plates and it's really grey, and
killer song.
When you go outside, it's really sunny, the grass is green, it's all blue, and when you're just wandering around, it's completely different. The atmosphere completely shifts, and 7 is really clever. Like you say, it takes you on a massive journey. Some of the characters are really great. I mean, I think a lot of the hate it gets now is because of the way that Square have tried to twist some of the characters' attitudes slightly. So Cloud especially, Cloud is all right, his cockiness comes from his kind of personality dysmorphia where he thinks he's Zack, but that cockiness is still present even after he gets over that bit, even though he's a bit more reflective. But after 7 and in Advent Children, in everything else afterwards, he's just a kind of miserable kind of, I must atone for everything. What do you need to atone for, Cloud? You've saved the world. Yes, Eris is dead, but Tifa is doing everything for you. Why are you...
Yeah, like a lot of the side content of Final Fantasy games, they really make bad characterizations of the characters that were already really good.
Yeah, and I think like Vincent's arc in the game, and even in Dirge of Cerberus, even the Dirge of Cerberus is terrible. I do like it, but it makes me weird because like Vincent is a side character in 7, but actually his character arc is extremely important with Hojo and Lucretia and Sephiroth, and it's so central. And the Turks, he was a member of the Turks as well, so it's like, hello.
What's funny about that? Sorry, Alana.
No, I'm a bit of a rant. It's fine. I'm done.
No, it's because I was going to build on that though, because Dirge of Cerberus has no reason to exist because Vincent's story is done.
Yeah, exactly. It was nice to see some of the events happen again in like better graphics, but I mean we're going to get that in the remake hopefully. But do you know what? Like, why is it there? This is the thing. I think like 7 has an empire itself essentially. Square Enix is basically built off of copies of Final Fantasy 7 and all of the side content. But like, I love 7 a lot. Like, it's a Final Fantasy that connects me with a couple of my friends. It's like the one RPG that almost all of them have played, and I can go, so you want to play Final Fantasy 7? Like, we're doing a drunk playthrough on the PS4 with everybody fast forwarded at the moment. So like, we're doing it on like ×4 speed, and it's excellent.
That's
so
amazing.
It's so wonderful, and it took me a while to get into the materia system, but the materia system is fairly good. I think for its time for a customization system, it's not as good as the Esper system in 6, I would say, but I like what it's tried to do. Sorry, I go on a rant on 7 because I like it a lot, but I also dislike a lot of what it's become.
I think we all feel
agree
that.
The perception of 7 has changed over time, and a lot of it is in a negative way, which is a little disappointing to me because, like, I know not everyone agrees with this, but I thought that the Turks were ruined by Advent Children. They were always a little silly, but like they went from being these cool like secret agent types to just being complete clowns by Advent Children. And I'm not going to deny they were clownish a little bit in the main game, but not to the degree that they changed.
Elena was the clownish one because she was the newbie, wasn't she? So she was kind of like doing things slightly wrong, and then
Rude and still made it in to Advent Children too. I don't understand that.
Yeah, but she got
into Advent Children by way of being tortured off screen.
Yeah. She looks cool though. Nice to see her.
Oh, they all look cool. I think the Turks are such a cool idea, and one that makes sense in the context of the game, right? These kind of elite agents that work, as sort of bodyguards, I guess, or just kind of weird bodyguard criminals.
They do like Shinra's dirty work behind the scenes, basically, until everyone knows that Shinra are a bunch of...
great idea for a villain of a sort of modernized Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And they're always a little silly. Like there is the scene where Reno and Rude just try to figure out who the hottest girl is, but they just made them They made them so ineffectual and silly in subsequent materials that it made me a little upset because I really liked the Turks as villains and thought they got ruined a little bit.
There are bits of the 7 compilation and other supplementary media that I think have been pretty good. I think Crisis Core is kind of generally considered the best one.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And it has its flaws, but I think it does lend an interesting perspective to Zack. I got a kick out of playing that game because I love the idea of Sephiroth just chilling out at the office.
It's I do. I agree with that.
You're having water cooler conversations with Sephiroth. It's like, really, this is happening.
And also, one thing I think is a little bit forgotten about Sephiroth, because I mean in 2017 all of us know who Sephiroth is and what he looks like, and that he's such a big part of FF7. But when you play FF7, say without knowing who Sephiroth is, you don't really see him until Calm. When you're playing through Midgar, you just know of him as this greatest warrior, and then you see him see the aftermath of some absolute carnage that he wrecks.
Yeah, they do a really good. They do a really good way of building him up because they build him up through Cloud, and then he's like, "Oh, I Sephiroth, I must get him. And then there's obviously his Masamune in the President of Shinra.
He's
and
just
then
following the trail of blood.
That's such a
and you
cool
have this
part of the game.
Yeah, and they build him up. And the first time you see Sephiroth is in a flashback in Calm, like you said, and it's a really, really interesting and really good way of building up a villain. Sephiroth is a good villain, actually, but again, like a lot of Cloud and some of it, I feel like supplementary media has kind of made him into this, like, one-winged angel.
He's kind of become the medic in a
I hate that. Does anybody else hate that one-winged angel aspect as much as I do?
Oh
yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all. You'd be flying
you will fly in circles, sir.
I think they just liked the phrase "one-winged angel" and thought it sounded cool.
Yeah.
And
then you play Crisis 4 and everyone has one.
Yeah, but it made a song title into a literal thing. Like, he never looked like that in the game.
No, there's actually a Japanese pro wrestler who has one-winged angel as his finishing move. And it's always very, very funny hearing Japanese announcers going, "One-winged angel!"
Of course you know that.
It's pretty great. But yeah, so that's where FF7 is now. From, being this seminal, hugely important RPG to bunch of goofy secret agents and wrestling finishing moves.
If we could just quickly sidebar then, what do we think of the remake, just in a few words?
Cautious optimism.
Yes, cautious optimism. They finished the Japanese recording, so they're a lot further than people think.
Well, we don't know how much of that actually is, because they're splitting it into parts.
Oh yeah, of course.
Probably to recoup on development costs, because this is going to be a massive undertaking if they wanted to live up to every fanboy's expectations.
And it needs to, basically.
And it won't. It won't. It'll never live up to
expectations. No. There are people who are going to be mad as hell about this game no matter what it does. Like, and I'm in a position where I'm okay with pretty much whatever they do with it. I'm expecting it's going to be more in line with recent.
I don't care either. Whatever it is, I'm just happy the polygon models are gone. The really bad polygon models are gone.
No more.
I'm into it.
No more like cylindrical Popeye arms, or like heads and torsos without necks.
Although my favourite thing that's come out of that is people who cosplay the polygon figures. They are fantastic. They walk around, they're so good.
Yes, I've seen a few of those and they're excellent.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I think it'll be whatever it is. I don't care, but I'm totally into whatever it's gonna do.
I'm cautiously optimistic about that remake, but I'm excited to see what it ends up being for sure. Even if it ends up being a little disappointing, I'm gonna have to check it out.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about FF9 a little bit.
Woo! Best one. I like how everyone cheers. So there you go. There's your answer.
All right. Yeah, Alana, let's have you go off on FF9 a bit, because I know that's your favorite.
One of my favorite games of all time. I think this might be a theme. I believe this is a theme with Peter. It's my first Final Fantasy. I like 9 because it does. I think I've said this before. This is why, in tangent with Skies of Arcadia, it does the nice thing where it's a little bit jollier than what came before it. So there was a trend of really dark, gritty, in inverted commas, RPGs, where they just kind of took a little bit of a downer, really, on people's attitude. 9 brought it up a little bit, although I think people credit it for being too positive. It's not. When it does serious so well. So I think 9 does a really lovely job of doing like a really classic traditional story in a classic traditional setting, but making sure that it doesn't feel old. So you can pick, like, 9 is my first Final Fantasy, but it felt like, with all the callbacks, I felt like I knew so much of the series before it, and going back to play with some of the older ones afterwards was a lot of fun. And you just go, oh, that's referenced in 9. That bit's referenced in 9. And like, I just really struggled to put 9 into words for me, because it's beautiful looking, it's great sounding. Zidane is one of my favorite protagonists, because he's a bit like Locke, and a bit like, it's just kind of, I do what I do. I'm a thief. I just kidnap people. And the relationship between Zidane and Dagger is really, really good.
Better than 10 or 8, which really put the romance first.
Exactly. It does it really well, and it does it really, like, normally as well, because there are bits where people are teasing each other, and it's like, oh, that's fine, like
the relationship develops naturally.
It does, yeah, because it's just really good. There's also like a really good diverse set of characters. So while a couple of them, I will admit, get shafted. So like Amaranth doesn't need to be there at all. Ever.
And Aiko isn't even. She's only in the last third of the game or so. So even though her role is important and she does get story shine for when she appears, but she's in so little of the game. I felt like she was underutilized.
She's young. She doesn't have much of a plot.
Right. And I also don't love child characters, so I never used Aiko much.
I thought she was a white mage.
I bet I used her over Dagger, yeah.
She's a better white mage and a worse summoner than Dagger.
I didn't use summons. I don't really use summons in Final Fantasy games, unless it's 10.
No, not even 4?
Oh, 4, yeah. Okay. 4's the other exception.
All right. Don't you dare badmouth Rydia on this. Don't you dare badmouth Rydia on this podcast.
No, never. Rydia is my favorite character in 4, so never. Freya gets shafted quite a lot as well. So I think obviously the main characters are Zidane, Garnet, and Vivi. And if you take Steiner along with you, that's kind of it. That's all you really need for the plot. Queener just exists to be Queener and eat things and chase frogs.
I don't mind that.
I like Queener. Queener's philosophy is great. Just like if you can't eat it, don't do anything with it. Yeah, I agree with that in some way.
I also appreciate having a character with forks as their primary weapon.
And she's so good as well.
I think cutlery is underrated RPG weapons.
Mm-hmm. So do I. Isn't there a character?
Just wait until the Cup Noodle DLC.
Tales of beat it because Tales of Destiny has Starn's little sister with a ladle, I believe, doesn't she?
And there's a couple Chrono Cross characters that use cutlery as weapons, including Lena.
Oh, well, but Final Fantasy IX does. I think it takes like the best aspects of some of the previous entries and does it in a really lovely, I think unanimously easy way to play the series. And I think 9 is one of the best entry points because it's it's not really ever difficult. Maybe one criticism I do have of it is how slow the battle system can be and Zidane's atrocious steal rate. I mean, it's ridiculous. There is a boss on disc 2, the Gigas, I can't, and I've never stolen whatever weapon off of it.
I literally played that for 2.5 hours of that boss fight, and I never got it, and I got nothing but wasted 2 hours.
One thing that I think is cool about FF9 is they have they do a really good job of having, Zidane's the main character and he's a thief. Like, stealing is really valuable in FF9. Like, almost every boss has good equipment worth stealing.
Which makes the steal rate that much more prominent and awful and terrible.
FF9 is the game I wish Square would make 16 be. Honestly. Yes. Because I think they need a return to form, and 9, to me, is exactly that. It was the perfect blend of old and new. It's a classic Final Fantasy game, but with the added depth, gravitas, and presentation power of the PlayStation 1 games.
Yeah.
In many ways, it's the best of both worlds, and I think it's the kind of thing where if Square made something like that today, I don't think anyone would complain. I think they're kind of like almost too scared to do that, and it's like I don't know why like when they were surprised that Bravely Default made money. It's like it's that kind of thing. But 9 in general, just I love Dagger and Zidane's relationship. I love the final section of the game, even though I know by that point the story is kind of a bit off kilter. I love the final dungeon. It has
I love Memoria.
And also, it has. So we were talking about how FF14 is so good with older Final Fantasy references. FF9 has a lot of sneaky good ones, with the whole Garland stuff in the end of the game. How you fight the FF1 fiends at the in the final dungeon.
Pandemonium is Final Fantasy 2, isn't it? So the whole of the bit in Terra, the Pandemonium's castle, is Pandemonium in Final Fantasy 2, which was really cool. I love that.
And also, like, just the designs for, I guess, specifically Vivi, Steiner, and I guess Aiko are very, like FF1 level class designs. And rolling
Steiner
back a
is
little
easily
bit,
one of the best comic reliefs I've seen in a game.
He's brilliant.
I'm being very, very serious, and it really works for comedic effect.
He's definitely a folly.
My two favorite characters in the game are Vivi and Steiner for basically opposite reasons. Because Steiner is such good comic relief, and Vivi's story arc is just incredible.
Precious.
I love it. I love everything about Vivi. How like innocent and sort of blank slatish and likable he is at the beginning, and then when you like how would you describe his story arc is basically about coming to terms with what he
mortality.
is as with his own mortality. Yeah, it's really remarkable.
It is amazing. I love Vivi a lot, God, and he's adorable as well. He keeps tripping over. I'm just really sad every time he falls over.
His hat, shuffling.
Yeah,
his big floppy hat is great.
That ending gets me every time.
Oh, don't.
Oh my god.
Every single time. I like Freya a lot, even though she gets shafted. I love her design. I love how she's like a rat, and I like lancers, and female lancers is like a bonus for me. So I like
anthropomorphic dragoon, A+.
Yeah, pretty much, and she's pretty cool as well. But I love most of the cast of 9, I should say. It's Amaranth annoys me because I don't feel like he should be there, but the rest I can sort of give a bye, because at least Queen is funny, and Aiko I really like because I think she's cute. A little bit annoying, but I like her.
She seemed good girl bratty, and I like that she was kind of like a sister to Garnet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Where they, instead of, being jealous and silly about, her liking Zidane and all that stuff, instead she just kind of really enjoyed that sister aspect with her.
Yeah, definitely.
It's cute. She was a good child character, and she actually acted like a child.
I think I'd agree with that. I like Yoko a lot. They are a really good motley crew.
And a short time ago, I was talking about how much I liked FF6's balance between everyone, like the whole cast feeling unique with their unique skills and also having common skills with magic. FF9 does it as well or better, because every character feels extremely unique with their own skill sets. That is, they're maybe the most differentiated FF characters since 4 at least. And then also the deriving skills from weapons and that whole customization system is like a more personalized version of materia almost.
Yeah, it's easy, and it's easy to sort of get to grips with, but also it allows for some depth of customization, so you can just leave stuff up. And there's some people have unique skills, so like obviously Zidane has stuff to boost his stealing, and he is Mug, and all the physical attackers get like Dragon Killer, and some people get it earlier as well than other people. So I think Freya gets Dragon Killer first, obviously, and then everybody else will follow suit with a certain weapon. And then also you get like Chemist for the healers and stuff like that. There are some really neat ways, and I think 9 is closest, like a mix between 4 and 6 kind of. So it takes like the world and the setting of 4 and the style of it, but takes maybe like some of the customization of 6 a little bit. Plus, just it takes from all the old ones.
And also, from a gameplay perspective, I kind of like how every character's main skill set is learned in different ways.
Yeah.
Most of the skills come from weapons, but almost everyone has a dedicated, not side quest exactly, but like Kina has the whole frog hunting thing, and and Freya gets stronger when you kill more dragons. More than half of the characters have a way of dealing guaranteed straight 9s and damage, but each one has to do it, like has to get to the max damage in a different way. Like the cast feels unique and powerful and interesting through the whole game, and that's important to me. And I think FF9 does a really good job with that.
Yeah, definitely a favorite.
So okay, we've talked about FF9 a lot. Now we have one last Final Fantasy game to talk about in detail before we start comparing, contrasting, and voting, or whatever whatever you want to call it. And that's Final Fantasy X, which is the second game that Retro Encounter covered almost 2 years ago. And I think both Peter, you and I were both on that podcast, right?
Yep.
Okay. And I actually sort of was a little down on FF10 in general before recording that because I didn't like it when I played it 15 years ago or however long ago because it wasn't enough like FF6 or 7 for me to love it. But I'm actually
you were one of those.
Yeah, but I'm more positive on it now. When I replayed it, I appreciated the good parts of FF10 more, and I generally rate 10 higher now than I did as recently as 3 years ago. So but Peter, I think FF10 is your favorite game in the series, right? You mentioned.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. 10 was really my first exposure to the series. Been over that before, but I having played it a few times since then, especially with the HD collections, which I own 2 copies of that collection. uh, that it just I think 10 for what it's worth is one of the best examples of world building in the entire series. Spira is a really well done setting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And aside from just being aesthetically really interesting, it's very Japanese. It sticks to the ocean and tropical motif for a lot of it. But it has a real sense of mystery about it that and uses a pretty time-honored storytelling tradition of just kind of the fish out of water trope with Tidus in order to give them a reason to explain this world to him. But and there's a lot of like little minor stuff in the story that you could say, okay, this doesn't quite add up or doesn't quite make sense. But a lot of it's in the service of this is just how this world works. It's a world and it's a world where you can go to the top of a waterfall and talk to dead people, and just crazy stuff like that. It's where Whale Cthulhu comes around every 10 years to wreck shit, and we have to send people to the other end of the world to
Whale Cthulhu.
I would totally listen to a retro review you write on this.
I called him the first time I played it. I referred to Sin as Ocean Lavos.
Yeah, he pretty much is. He pretty much is, isn't he? He just, rips time barriers and destroys things, and he is literally Sin.
But I mean, like they have very, very different origin stories, Lavos and Sin. But the mythology of FF10, I mean, like the first time I played it, I made fun of it and thought it was dumb. But it respects its own mythology and takes it seriously enough that I think it's well presented in general, especially like what summoners are and how they're also sort of not ostracized, but like set aside in society a certain way. Is pretty interesting, and but mostly I just love how pretty that world is.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's so different from anything else either. Like the only other RPG I can think of that's done tropical is Chrono Cross, and they're both really lovely, interesting worlds.
The beginning of Chrono Cross and the beginning of FF10 feel a little similar in just how colorful and beautiful the scenery is. But in FF10, like, holy crap, when I played the HD version a while ago, I was just blown away by how vibrant everything was. And then in the second half of the game, when you go to the Calm Lands, just how green that area was, just like
how big.
Yeah, it's even the normal stuff in FF10, like the grass and the ice in the ice areas, and how overcast and nasty the Xanacan ruins are. Everything about it just feels beautiful and atmospheric and appropriate.
Yeah.
The thing about 10-2, not 10-2 the game, but 10 continue. You know what I mean? It's in a lot of ways it set a precedent for those kind of like more linear JRPGs that we would see, but we didn't know how bad it would get. 13 was a long ways off, but
I think 10 was the appropriate amount if they're going to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
didn't feel like it skimped on content.
I don't like how linear 10 is, but really the linearity of it's just kind of hidden in a way. Like it's not as linear as it seems.
The pacing of the story.
Right.
That pilgrimage idea almost made it.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
and at least you've got things to do.
The pilgrimage idea gives the story forward momentum and keeps you wanting to progress. But again,
hey Tabitha, if you're listening to this, because I know you're not, but you can tell a road trip story and still have things going on.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not like it locks you out of areas either. Like it does in certain points, but like you can go back and visit things and you can interact and do other things. So it's not like 13 where you are literally locked into doing things in a particular order at that time. And there's more NPCs to talk to, there's more things to do along the way. And the cast is likable.
I love 10's cast.
I like 10's cast. There's not a single one I don't like, actually.
I hate 10's.
Yeah, that makes one of the few casts where I can say that.
I think Tidus grew on me. Like, I hate him in the beginning because he's like a whiny teenager.
Yeah, I just kind of hate him because he's a bit of a weenie. Like, when he's trying to swim after Sin, after like the entire battlefield gets decimated, I'm like,
he can't decide if he's wearing overalls or shorts.
Oh, don't. That's dreadful.
Man.
But I think
he just does have a good arc, though, which I like.
He's got a good arc, yeah.
He's got a good arc. He's just a bit annoying at times, and the end, like I don't really like him too much. Like he's probably maybe not my least favorite. Maybe Kamari's my least favorite, but that's just because he's kind of just there and very quiet. But
he's just terrible in battle. He just does not ever find his own.
Yeah, and Kamari always feels like a less good version of one of your other characters, depending on how you mess around with his sphere grid. So he was the character I used the least in battle. But also,
I think
talking about combat a little bit in FF10, I love its turn-based battle system.
Yes.
Just love it. It's
definitely the best.
It's so quick and easy to switch people in and out.
I love that it prompts the next character during an attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is perfect. Every turn-based game should basically do that.
Oh yeah,
and like if the Final Fantasy series ever goes back to turn-based, or if they do it with Final Fantasy VII, they should really take notes from that.
And it's it uses. It has delays and charge times involved in different skills, but it's hidden because they hide it by showing the timeline of character moves and you're just like knocking them up and down on the timeline depending on like the hidden stats of each attack. It's like the best version of a Grandia or Final Fantasy Tactics speed focused system. But it does so and communicates everything visually so well. I'm a little shocked that it's a 2001 game and its turn-based combat feels so good and modern.
I also like that you could actually see the effects of haste happening, like when you could see all the characters in the roulette.
Mm-hmm.
I like that because I'm always kind of dubious whether or not like the old games actually made a difference on that.
Yeah, and they're like temperamental as well.
And then in 10 you cast haste on somebody and they just start going.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like they're losing it. I love it, especially Waka. His like victory theme, like when he wins, when he's on he's like headbanging to like 40,000 minutes, like 30,000 beats a second or something. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Waka, his perfectly coiffed hair.
Oh
God, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hair in that game just stays perfect a little too easily.
Okay, I may not agree. You guys, have any of you guys watched Spoonie Experiments Final Fantasy reviews?
Barely.
No.
Like he hates 8, 10, like basically every game since 7. But
he sounds all right.
But his 10-2 review is still the funniest thing because when Waka and Lulu getting married, having a kid, he's just like, okay, now get that one out of your brain. Waka creating a new life form.
I do not get that at all, and actually that really frustrates me.
The Waka-Lulu relationship?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't like that. Like,
really?
You know what? My younger brother's dead, so I'm going to get with you eventually. It's like, no!
That's not a logical jump. No.
10-2 in general is just really bad at following up on character stuff. It's an interesting exercise in continuing the world story. Like, we're picking up the pieces after you basically shot our entire religion down the toilet. But character stuff is bad.
Probably got the best example of the ATB system as well. So, like we're saying that 10's got the best battle system in the series and the best one of the best turn-based battle systems. I think 10-2 has got the best active time battle system.
I have to say, thinking about it, I'm not really keen on any of the characters in Final Fantasy X, but the world building that they do around them totally works.
Yeah,
I agree.
Well,
I like Auron a lot.
I find Auron trying so hard to be cool that it hurts. It kind of hurts. Like, he's got the sunglasses. Yeah, I'm like, okay, cool it, buddy.
But even then, like, just comparing 10 to something like 13, and this point of comparison is an easy one to make because they have a lot of same people on staff and they're kind of structured similarly. But whereas 13 is just so sterile and the world just is segmented and there's no cohesion or anything, and there's tons of lore, but none of it really impacts the story.
And no variation.
10 just is like, it does everything right that 13 did wrong.
And even though like some of the areas are linear, like there are little branching paths. So like Macalania has got like 2 or 3 different ways you can go, and even though you'll end up in the same place, it still feels like you're doing things a little bit differently. And like there's little mechanics that you can do as well. Like as much as everyone hates the thunder plains, at least you can dodge the lightning walking up. At least it's not just a straight line where you are just walking down through a grey mist. You have got to keep an eye on your surroundings as well.
And the music's cool.
Can you dodge the lightning 100 times in a row for the trophy?
Yes.
I approve this.
You can cheat it. There's a little pit in one of the sections where you can walk around in a circle and the lightning will activate every time. So that's how I did it.
I never did the lightning or the butterfly catching or the chocobo racing, but I did play 60 games of Blitzball when I last replayed it.
Oh God!
and got all of Waka's stuff. Yep.
Do you like Blitzball?
I love Blitzball.
I love Blitzball. I hated it. The first time I played it, I hated it. So I went back and figured out that you could recruit people, and it's fun. And it's so satisfying beating the Luca goers every time.
Oh.
Every single time. I just really like it. And also, Jack Shot is cool.
I just like the idea of like running your own sports team and recruiting anyone in the world to it.
It's so good.
Although like that, I mean, by the end of the game, like half of my team is Albed and half of my team is Kilika Beasts. But
yes,
yeah, I love that. I would not object to Blitzball or a similar like sports themed quest showing up in future RPGs like this. I love Blitzball.
Well, it's coming to Stormblood, right?
We don't know. No, it's
hope so.
No, it's not.
They said they were working on it. They said they were working on it.
They want to. I wouldn't imagine coming straight away.
Yeah, they said that they liked the idea of it and would like to put it in the game, and there is going to be swimming and underwater stuff in Stormblood, but we don't know if there's going to be Blitzball or not. And I would love for it to show up.
I was a bit of a sadist, and I have got all the celestial weapons twice.
Oh God.
Yeah, I do hate. Like the only ones that are easy to do are Yuna's, and Orin's is easy.
Yeah, Orin's and Yuna's are easy.
It's just a pain.
I did. Riku's isn't that bad.
Version. No, Riku's isn't that bad either.
You have to find like 20 cactuars in the desert or something.
Yeah, I don't find the butterflies too bad, but to be fair, I do just get a guide up and put the map in front of me. So I'm not prepared to deal with the kind of slightly bluish, reddish butterfly that's not completely red and blends into the background, even though it's not blue. So
the thing about getting all the celestial weapons is that like if you play the international version, then all of a sudden the dark aeons show up and just completely you if you go for that, and that is the worst.
See, you missed out on that in 2001.
Yeah, I Zanmatoed that thing.
Yeah, so on my replay on the PS3, I was trying to get Anima, and I forgot to get the orb in Besaid, the destruction orb. And
me too!
So I had to go back, and Dark Veilthor was waiting for me, so I just paid Yojimbo like 1,000,000 gil and Zanmatted him, and I was happy. So I've got Anima now, and Anima does like 20 million damage sometimes.
You did what you paid for.
Also, Yojimbo is really cool. Right, Yojimbo is such a cool.
Oh yeah, he is.
Anima's my favorite.
He's got a cool little lion dog too.
Yeah,
the summons in that game I thought were actually great. They really nailed it that time.
It's one of the best looking versions of Bahamut, and they do a good job of making the summons like connected to the story and cool and powerful. Like by the end of the game, if you invest in your summons a little bit, Yuna is just
insane.
She's a monster.
Yeah, Yuna is god.
Yeah, she's got the best magic stat as well. So if you take her onto black magic, then Lulu is literally useless. So
I always use some special orbs that just teach her the 4 Hagues spells, and then I never use Lulu ever again.
No, and I think she's quicker as well. So
yeah, Lulu has high evade and high magic defense, which is not the most attractive character design.
No,
a mage with high defense, oh goody.
Hey, I think I was going to try. Oh, the Mega Sisters, a reference from Final Fantasy IV.
Yeah, so cool.
And they're really cool designs. I really like the bug designs. They are a pain to use, but just like please attack. No, I'm going to heal. Brilliant. It's fine. You can heal, but I tell you what, when Mindy, the smallest one, the bee, when she does Passado, I'm just like, yes, dead, all dead. They're great. But I love the Mega Sisters because it's a really neat callback to Final Fantasy IV, and I'm just like, I love that. I love the design of them. Actually, the Aeons are really cool in this game. I always like summons in Final Fantasy games. I just don't use them enough because 10 did them really well, and then 4's done them really well, and 6 integrates them really well into the plot. But otherwise, give or take, and 7's got Knights of the Round, and I'm really not sitting through 10 minutes of cutscene just so I could do however much damage. Please. I'm a fussy fan.
Well, all right.
I just killed it.
We have talked about our final 4 Final Fantasy games. 6, 7, 9, 10. A lot. Those are officially the 4 that we're going to consider for picking our favorite. And now we have some discussion to do. Okay, now we just took a brief break in the podcast to hold a second vote between these top 4, and remarkably, there is a front runner that has emerged as the favorite. So I don't think we need to fight over it. We have our winner, but we're gonna go over them in reverse order just to go through our process a little bit, and before we just heap praise upon the winner. So in a sort of distant last place is Final Fantasy X, which Peter ranked as his favorite, and the other 3 of us ranked 4th.
Oh,
oops.
Oh,
Peter.
That's not to say it's a bad thing.
No, it's not bad.
We need you, Peter.
It's in my top 5.
FF10's good. I just really, really like the other 3.
Yeah, FF10's in my top 5, so
this is a race to the top. So I mean,
yeah.
I get it. It's okay.
I don't know. I mean, for everything that FF10 does well, especially visually, I guess, and I do know how to play 2 Xanarkand on the piano. I spent a few weeks at least learning how to do that when I was in high school. But yeah, FF10 has a lot going for it. But I guess just those sort of annoying characters and just not being as good as the other 3 in the eyes of Alana, Steph, and I. Just sunk it, I suppose.
I mean, it's in good company, so.
Yeah, it is. And there was almost a tie for 2nd and 3rd place, but because one of them was ranked as a favorite, I guess it breaks the tie just barely. So in third place we have FF7, which again.
Yeah.
I think is maybe damaged a little bit by the FF7 materials that came afterwards. But I think it holds up as an excellent RPG, and I'm again cautious optimism about that FF7 remake that may be coming next year. We don't really know when it's coming out at all, do we?
Nope.
So not happening.
And it would only be the first. It would only be part 1 of a multi-part game, right?
It's like versus 13.
If we get part 1, if we get like even anything about part 1 of E3 this year, I will be amazed.
Oh yeah, that's true. We've had snippets of shots, and that's it.
I think part 1 in 2018 is possible.
Yeah, I think so.
But 2017, absolutely not. It's not coming out this year.
It's just quite sad that it's missed the 20th anniversary of 7 and the 30th anniversary of the series, really. But it makes sense. I don't want them to rush it like they did 15.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to play that when it comes out. And anyway, in just barely ahead of FF7, in second place is FF6.
Which was last on my list. I'm sorry, guys.
and first on my list, and ranked in the middle for both Steph and Alana.
I've only played 6 once, to be fair, and it was, I liked it. To me, 6 is the Ocarina of Time of the series. It's special.
Yeah.
It set the bar going forward, but a lot of games since have just kind of built on it, and I like them more. That's all.
6 is like seminal, I think. Seminal's the good word. 6 and 7 are the seminal two, so it's nice that they're always kind of together in the middle. This list mirrors my list. I just realized, I was like,
oh wow, yeah, it actually follows Alana's exactly is how we're voting. No, the three of us did not vote the same. No one had identical ballots, but yeah, Alana's list is exactly the group's list. Remarkably,
omniscient, confirmed.
Head of refutes.
And so the winner is Final Fantasy IX. It was the favorite on both Steph and Alana's list, and ranked in the middle for both Peter and I. Yeah. And it is the far and away winner. FF9's awesome.
I think what I'll say is, I think 9 is my favorite, but I think 6 is what I'd call the best. So, favorite and best are different for me, but
sure, yeah, I get favorite and best being different, but FF9 it does a lot of things really well, and no other Final Fantasy game looks like FF9. It's so unusual in how it has so many different kinds of characters. It's like in FF6 all of the characters are basically humanoid. But in FF9 you have all these different body types and all these different designs, and no one really looks the same in FF9. It's visually so distinct and does a lot of really cool gameplay and story things. I don't have a problem with FF9 winning this.
Good. So you shouldn't.
Well, Steven's happy with this podcast, at least.
That's exactly it. There you go. This is all for Steb.
Sure. I'll have to record an extremely negative Kingdom Hearts podcast just to bring him down to earth a little bit.
I'm going to hurt you, Mike.
You can't be negative about Yoko Shimomura, at least.
Yeah, Super Mario RPG and Street Fighter 2 have great soundtracks.
And Parasite Eve. Mm-hmm. And Radiant Historia.
Oh, so by the way, Kingdom Hearts is my favorite Final Fantasy game.
Peter, I'm editing out every line of dialogue that you said today. Oh, what's this? FF Tactics is now 4th place instead of FF10. Who'd have thunk?
Oh, dear. It's like, I knew you were going to devolve into, like, cannibalism, so...
Alright, well, we don't need to keep it so negative around here. We all four of us love Final Fantasy as a series. It's had many good, excellent, and maybe less excellent games over the years, and we've talked a lot about almost all of them, but ultimately decided that FF9 is our favorite. Apologies to Josh, who would have been still arguing for FF12 at this point. And apologies for Peter for my unwarranted comments a moment ago. But I think have we arrived at the conclusion that we're mostly satisfied with, or at least satisfied enough with?
Yeah.
All right.
Any day where 9 wins something is good in my book.
Yeah.
I should replay 9. I have only played 9 twice, and it was once normally, and then once using a guide to do an Excalibur 2 run.
Oh, I've never done that.
I had to use a guide. It involves, a lot of saving and reloading to get Limit Globe really, really early, and then using and then stutter stepping to avoid random encounters.
Oh, see, that's so particular.
It is. It was difficult, and also opening and closing the disc to skip cutscenes, because in the original version cutscenes weren't skippable with a button press.
Oh, that's great.
So there's a lot of total nonsense involved in the Excalibur 2 run, but there's really nothing else like it in a Final Fantasy game. I mean,
no.
How many other RPG? Well, there's probably other RPGs, but not many have you get a super bonus for getting to the end in 12 hours.
You get like a little praise for doing it in Chrono Trigger under a certain time, I think, but I can't remember I don't know what the cutoff is, because I remember doing the Dream Team run, and then one of them going, "Oh, here's a celebration for you, just because you finished the game so quickly." I was like, "Oh, thanks." Well, you don't get anything for it. It's just like a pat on the back.
Cool.
I am holding out for a PS4 version of 9, a la the PS4 version of 7.
Oh, right. That has speed up buttons and a couple other.
Yeah, exactly.
Extra
I want them to do that with 7 and 8 because
Yeah.
with 8 and 9, I mean.
And the PC version of 9 does have some of that.
Yeah, the Steam version's got speed up, so
right.
I haven't got the Steam version, but I've heard it's got speed up and stuff. So yeah.
I should replay 9 soon. The only problem is, new games keep coming out. My backlog isn't changing. Oh, there's too many good there's too many good RPGs out there.
This is 2017 is spoiling us.
Yeah, geez. Just March and April alone are crazy.
Oh, don't.
So, anyway, I guess that about does it for this week's Retro Encounter episode. Next week, you're going to hear the second podcast on Chrono Trigger, which Alana, Peter, both of you are going to be joining me on, along with Chris.
Yeah.
Turn to the Kingdom of Zeal.
Yes!
And then after that, we have we'll have a couple bonus rounds that are penciled in. I'm not sure exactly what the topics will be at the end of March going into early April. But in April, we are playing the Namco Bandai classic, Tales of the Abyss.
Yay! Everyone's going to get sick of me by the beginning of the year. They're like, not again. Why is Alana on another podcast? Yeah. Tales of the Abyss is good.
We've talked about Tales games a lot on this podcast, especially during bonus rounds where our conversation spans a lot of ways. But this time we're finally going to play one, and it's the PS2/3DS classic Tales of the Abyss. I still have to move on a little bit in that game. I'm way early in. Alana, if you think that the audience is sick of you, oh boy, I've been on way too many episodes in February and March.
It's fine. You were like part 2 of this podcast. It's fine. You're like half of it.
Right, so that's what we have going on in the next couple of weeks. If you want to email us, you should do so at retro@rpgfan.com, and also visit us on the rpgfan.com message boards and the RPG Fan Facebook page. Review us on iTunes or other podcasting listening venues. It's a good way to get the podcast more exposure. So, let's see. Starting with Alana, let's tell the audience where they can find us on social media.
Social medias are, you can find me on Twitter at Alana Hagues. I have a semi-blog that I should be updating at the Ruby Rogue at WordPress. Well, you can message me on the boards at Diving Falcons. I am the little flammy icon if you ever see me. So please, come and talk to me.
And Peter, you go ahead. How do we talk to you?
I am at I Have Fury on Twitter. I have Fury on the boards as well. Look for the Doge with the Batman hat.
So much salt.
The best thing to come out of Batman v Superman is my forum icon.
Steph, where can we find you on social media?
I'm Dice SMS on Facebook, and I am your social media person, so usually you're talking to myself or another guy on Facebook and Twitter or wherever else, and I'm on the forums as Dice as well.
All right. And I am at The Real Monsoon on Twitter and Monsoon on the forums. I'm the Muppet animal icon on the forums.
And in real life.
and in real life. RPG! So, yeah, that'll do it.
Exactly what he sounds like.
And confirm.
I look and sound exactly like Animal in real life. It's true. I am a cartoon version of Keith Moon. Good night, everybody.
Alone for a while, I've been searching through the dark for traces of the love you left inside my lonely heart, to weave by picking up the pieces that remain, melodies of life, love's lost refrain. Our past, they did close stories never told.